Milan stormed to the Scudetto in May to make it 3 different Serie A title winners in as many years, after triumphs for Juventus and Inter. Further south, fans in Naples and on both sides of Rome were dreaming of their teams finally claiming the coveted prize once again. The top 8 consolidated with their coaches, but it was a busy summer in the transfer market. Champions Milan once again looked to youth, swooping to sign Belgian prospect Charles de Ketelaere, while Inter and Juventus turned to the tried and tested by bringing back Romelu Lukaku and Paul Pogba, both title winners in their respective first spells. Paulo Dybala's move to Roma caused a frenzy in the capital. However, there were question marks about how well Napoli would fare after a summer rebuild that saw the departure of several senior players. Lecce were frequent visitors to Serie A, but the 2 sides joining them were less well versed in the rigours of the top flight. Cremonese ended a 26-year hiatus, while ambitious Monza made their long-awaited Serie A bow. In an unprecedented campaign due to the mid-season Qatar World Cup, the fixture list was busier than ever, with 15 rounds of Serie A played come mid-November. Milan's title defence began with an eerie feeling of déjà vu.
Deulofeu takes the corner, and of course it's Rodrigo Becao. Just what is it about playing Milan that brings out the best in the Brazilian?
Before the Rossoneri reminded everyone why they were champions in the first place, coming from behind to secure a rousing 4-2 victory over Udinese.
This is Brahim Diaz and Rebic, and the champions are surely now on course to victory.
Juventus might have lost Pogba to injury, but they still possess more than enough firepower as a summer signing,
Di Maria!
And a January recruit forged an instant rapport in a comfortable win over Sassuolo.
Di Maria! Vlahovic! A double in the opening game of the season.
Inter's decision to recruit Lukaku immediately paid dividends as the Belgian marked his second debut.
It's Lukaku!
Just as he had his first, by scoring against Lecce.
Scarcely 90 seconds on the clock, and he is back in business.
But persistent injuries would hamper the Belgians' campaign. The first big game would come in round 2, as Atalanta and Milan shared the points in Bergamo. While Napoli caught the eye by following up their opening day 5-2 victory in Verona by routing Monza 4-0 at the Maradona.
And now Kvaratskhelia steadying himself! Where on earth has he come from?
As Serie A learned all about Napoli's new signings.
Kvaratskhelia, a star in the making. Zielinski sends it in, and there's a goal for Kim.
And Roma made it maximum points with the minimum of fuss, courtesy of a second straight 1-0 scoreline.
Smalling!
This time against Cremonese. So after 2 matches, only 3 sides still boasted 100% records: Napoli, Inter and Roma. While the 3 teams promoted from Serie B all sat in the drop zone without a point to their names. The following weekend, Inter responded to an early setback in the capital to draw level at Lazio. But for the second straight year,
Luis Alberto! Stunner!
Simone Inzaghi was left cursing his former club.
And it's the same scoreline as last season.
After a 3-1 defeat at the Olimpico. In a crunch game against Roma, Dusan Vlahovic showcased the variety in his repertoire.
It's a fabulous goal!
But Jose Mourinho's men grabbed a vital point in Turin after Dybala teed up Tammy Abraham. A 4-0 humbling of Sampdoria at the Arecchi suggested it would be a more comfortable campaign for Salernitana.
Dia, lovely ball for Boateng. It's 4-0 Salernitana.
While alarm bells were already ringing for Marco Giampaolo and the Blucerchiati. And Napoli dropped points for the first time this season after a stalemate in Florence. In the first midweek round of the season, Roma brushed aside Monza, with Dybala bringing up a milestone strike.
100 goals in Serie A for Paolo Dybala.
And after frustrating draws for Milan at Sassuolo and Napoli at home to Lecce, Atalanta flew under the radar to move joint top after a 3-1 win over Torino, with turncoat Mainers taking home the match ball.
The Dutchman gets his hat-trick.
So, after 4 matches, just 2 points separated the top 7 sides. September would open with a Super Saturday in Serie A, as the Derby della Madonnina headlined a trio of matches featuring 6 of the previous season's top 7 sides. Juventus made another fast start, but spurned their lead once more as a point in Florence.
Striding into the Juve box, Christian Kwame! And it is Fiorentina 1, Juventus 1.
Meant Allegri's side could only win 2 of their first 5 matches. Having crumbled in their most recent league derby, lightning struck twice for Inter, as the Nerazzurri once again let Milan back in.
Sandro Tonali for Rafael Leao! Finally, he has his derby goal.
With a new derby hero emerging as the perfect foil to Inter slayer Olivier Giroud.
Giroud has found Rafael Leao, and still Rafael Leao! He has now reached superstar status.
On the back of 2 straight draws, Napoli fell behind to a Zaccagni strike in the capital.
Lazio leads at the Olimpico.
Yet Kim Min-jae was proving to be effective at both ends of the pitch. And Kvicha Kvaratskhelia was relishing his role as the new talisman for Luciano Spalletti.
That is you-know-who! 5 games into the Serie A season, but he has quickly become Napoli's chief protagonist.
Atalanta's newfound defensive solidity kept them top of the pile after a routine win at Monza. But individual mistakes saw Roma humbled 4-0 in Friuli, as new Udinese coach Andrea Sottil made waves with a 3rd victory on the bounce.
Not only beating Roma, they are routing Roma.
And despite the exploits of the early season top scorer,
It's Marco Arnautovic for Bologna. You know the rest.
a draw at Spezia left Bologna winless after 5 matches, And Sinisa Mihajlovic out of a job. Round 6 was full of crucial goals as Inter...
Brozovic! Inter get over the line!
And Napoli...
Raspadori! He seizes his moment!
left it late to grab maximum points. Bologna snatched their first win by beating out-of-sorts Fiorentina.
Arnautovic! Number 6 of the season.
Albeit it was caretaker boss Luca Vigiani who masterminded the victory, with new coach Thiago Motta not yet officially appointed. And Salernitana were just minutes away from a famous win in Turin, until the Juventus captain made it 2-2 with an added time penalty.
Bonucci sweeps home the rebound.
If that result was underwhelming for the Bianconeri, their next fixture would become infamous. Monza's draw at Lecce had prompted the dismissal of Giovanni Stroppa, handing a first senior coaching opportunity to former Juventus player Raffaele Palladino. The visit of the Bianconeri looked a real baptism of fire for the new Monza boss. But after the red mist descended...
And Juventus's bad week has just got even worse.
And the visitors' defending went awry.
There is the goal! Good care with it!
Monza enjoyed an afternoon they would never forget.
The day Monza finally won their first game in Serie A at the 7th time of asking. And not just against any opposition either.
Udinese proved their rout of Roma hadn't just been a flash in the pan, stunning Inter from behind, as our 5th straight win sent them to the summit.
They're queuing up at the back post. Arslan! Udinese are going to the top of the Serie A table for at least a few hours.
And Napoli's summer recruitment drive provided the latest return on investment.
Mario Rui, it's his ball in. Simeone! Napoli have come roaring back!
When Giovanni Simeone made it 2-1 late on in a statement victory at champions Milan. So, come the first international break of the season, Napoli and Atalanta were the early pace setters, along with surprise package Udinese. While at the other end, Sampdoria and Verona sat either side of newly promoted pair of Monza and Cremonese. Sampdoria's home match against Monza was a real 6-pointer. And a 3-0 loss at Marassi.
Churia. Met by Colli, and then on the volley! How about that from Gianluca Caprari?
Made Marco Giampaolo the latest coaching casualty. Inter had turned down the chance to sign Dybala in the summer, and the Argentine proved his point.
Spinazzola, Dybala! Here's what you could have won.
In a 2-1 win for the Giallorossi at San Siro. Milan showed heart to win in added time at Empoli.
Can you believe it? Balotore!
While boyhood Lazio fan Alessio Romagnoli got on the score sheet in a 4-0 rout of Spezia at the Olimpico.
Milinkovic Savic, it's beautiful, it's perfect, it's 5-star football from Lazio.
Juventus's 3-0 win over Bologna would prove to be a false storm.
2 weeks of pent-up frustration unleashed on Bologna.
The Bianconeri endured a further setback at Milan in round 9.
A sensational solo strike from Brahim Diaz. And now Milan have a 2-goal cushion.
And Napoli suffered a scare in Cremona before their Argentine ace popped up.
The new hero of Naples, Giovanni Simeone.
with the first of 3 late goals at the Zini. Udinese and Atalanta shared the spoils in a meeting of second and third.
They've come from 2 down against the best defence in the division.
Verona went to sleep again at the death to hand victory to Salernitana.
For the second game running, Verona have conceded in stoppage time,
which cost Giallo-Blu coach Gabriele Cioffi his job. And free-scoring Lazio brought up a hat-trick of 4-0 victories with a dazzling display in Florence.
Milinkovic, Savic, Immobile! That is Lazio at their best.
Juventus were under huge pressure ahead of the derby, 10 points behind leaders Napoli. But a timely strike from the Bianconeri number 9.
And there is Vlahovic with the big goal in the big game at a big time.
Would spark the start of a winning run. Simeone and Raspadori had picked up the slack during Osimhen's absence through injury. But the Nigerian returned to full fitness to spare Alex Miret's blushes against Bologna and extend Napoli's winning run to half a dozen matches.
Victor Osimhen is back all right.
Sandro Tonali's previous visit to Verona had featured a birthday brace.
And here is Sandro Tonali. He loves coming to the Bentegodi.
And his cool finish consigned Salvatore Bocchetti to defeat in his first match at the Giallo-Blu helm. While the prolific Ademola Lookman struck his 4th of the season to leave Atalanta unbeaten after 10 games and just 2 points behind Napoli. The following round was packed full of drama. With De Ketelaere in and out of the side, Brahim Diaz picked up the baton for Milan.
Diaz away from Barberis. He did it against Juventus, and he's done it against Monza.
In a comfortable 4-1 victory over Monza. In front of former Rossoneri executive, now Monza chief, Adriano Galliani. Juventus also struck 4 goals, albeit without reply, as their revival continued at home to Empoli. While Inter needed 4 at Fiorentina.
Mkhitaryan! Unbridled joy for Inter.
Just to edge a crazy 7-goal thriller. And Lazio stormed Bergamo.
Mattia Zaccagni. Lazio silenced the Gever Stadium
To end Atalanta's unbeaten start. Next up were Napoli, who had failed to beat Roma the previous season. Just when Jose Mourinho looked to have frustrated them for the 2nd straight campaign, a moment of magic settled the contest.
Osimhen getting the wrong side of Smalling. Osimhen! That is world class. And it might well prove to be the winner.
And Sampdoria, now under Dejan Stankovic, sealed an all-important first victory in Cremona.
Omar Colley comes up with the goods for Sampdoria.
To leave the hosts winless and in deep trouble. Napoli smashed 4 against Sassuolo with a star turn from their irrepressible centre-forward.
Victor Osimhen for his first Serie A hat-trick.
While Juventus scraped past Lecce thanks to one of their bright young things.
It's towards Pacioli. Just what Juventus needed.
But Milan suffered a shock loss at Torino.
Alexei Miranchuk and Torino are flying.
To leave Napoli with a 5-point cushion over Atalanta before a meeting of the top two in round 13. A thumping Lookman penalty prompted a resilient response from Napoli as Osimhen's purple patch continued and Spalletti selected the perfect backup left winger, Elif Elmas.
Only in the side because Kvaratskhelia is injured, but he has done exactly what the Georgian does.
Milan slipped into second with a last-gasp win over Spezia, ahead of two marquee matches on moving day in Serie A. Roma blinked first in the Derby della Capitale.
Felipe Anderson. And the Brazilian lands the first punch here in the derby,
allowing Lazio to leapfrog their arch-rivals. And a fourth straight clean sheet for Juventus helped them to a massive result against Inter, the Nerazzurri's fifth domestic loss of the campaign.
Fagioli! The kids are all right for Allegri.
Empoli had done the double over Napoli the previous season, but goals from Lozano and Zielinski
Against his former club to make sure of the points.
saw Spalletti's men exact revenge in a 10th win in a row for the league leaders. Having lost at Torino, Milan stumbled in Cremona, with the Rossoneri unable to find a way past the hosts' heroic goalkeeper Marco Carnesecchi. Lazio's teenage sensation showed the calmness of a veteran to see off Monza.
Luca Romero! An error from Di Gregorio, pounced on by the 17-year-old.
Meaning the Biancocelesti and Milan both sat 8 points off the top. That result aside, Palladino had transformed Monza's fortunes to sit comfortably in mid-table along with Lecce after their stunning victory over Atalanta. Napoli were cruising 3-0 at home to Udinese on the final weekend before the World Cup break.
Napoli out of sight.
But the league leaders suffered a late wobble.
Udinese have scored 2 goals in the space of 2 minutes.
Before clinging on to bring up an astonishing haul of 41 points from a possible 45. And it appeared a double-digit advantage was within their grasp, with Milan being held at home by Fiorentina. However, there would be a late twist in the tale.
And it's an own goal from Milenkovic. And the champions still have plenty of fight left in them yet.
Having been way down in 8th place at the end of October, Juventus ended 2022 in 3rd.
It's Moise Kean's night, finishing the year with a bang.
In a 3-0 stroll past Lazio. That was a 6th win on the bounce for Juventus, but they were still no closer to catching runaway leaders Napoli. Cremonese would have to wait until January to finally win a match, while Stankovic and Bocchetti were faring no better than their predecessors at Sampdoria and Verona. In December, the Italian game was rocked by the death of Sinisa Mihajlovic, aged 53. Across 3 decades in Serie A, the Serbian won the hearts and minds of fans at a host of clubs. first as defender with an iconic left foot, and latterly as a successful coach. Mihajlovic played for Roma and Sampdoria before going on to win silverware with Lazio and Inter. He coached 6 separate clubs in the Italian top flight, including Milan and Bologna, his final role. Known simply as Sinisa, Mihajlovic leaves a lasting legacy in Serie A, and he will be sorely missed.